Let's make some plant-based pizza hot pockets. Welcome back to the Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show, where we make plant-based cooking easy. I'm Jill, and today we are making pizza hot pockets. And if you don't know what a hot pocket is, it's just a little hand pie filled with delicious stuffings or fillings. And today we're going to do a pizza filling, which is my homemade pepperoni and some other toppings that we'll get to later. But we're going to start with the dough. So I've got 1 cup of oats here that I've already ground into a flour. I just ground them lightly in my NutriBullet, and whatever blender you have will work just fine. Or you could use a little spice grinder, that works too. 1 cup of almond flour, a 1/2 cup of tapioca starch, a 1/2 cup of flax meal, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and then the thing that's going to stick it all together are our sweet potatoes. So this dough I've used before in a couple of my other recipes. You may have tried them before. It's amazing. This is a 1.25 cups of already cooked white sweet potato. You can use an orange sweet potato too, but this just gives it more of that traditional dough look. But they will both work just fine. And then I have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And we're just going to mix this all up. I've got my pastry cutter. You could do it with a fork or even just a spoon for a little while until you can get it to a place where you can kind of mash it and mix it with your hands. And we're just really trying to get it all to stick together into a ball of dough, kind of like a pie dough. Okay, that is the consistency we're looking for. So we're going to set this aside for a little bit while we're getting together our other parts, like the sauce and the cheese. Okay, now we're going to make the sauce. So I've got 3 tablespoons of tomato paste, 2 teaspoons of low sodium tamari, and then I have 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, 1/2 teaspoon of basil, and 1/4 teaspoon of thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And then just 1/3 cup of water. So this is just a really basic pizza sauce, and it has to be a little bit thicker than a normal pizza sauce because we want all of that to stay in that hot pocket and not ooze out any little crack. So you're just going to whisk that up with your whisk, and then just like the dough, we're going to set that aside until we get all of our other components ready. So next is the cheese. While we're waiting for that, I'd like to share some background on our show. The Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show is crowd-funded, which means these free weekly recipe videos, along with our entire catalog of free printable recipes on our website, plantbasedcookingshow.com, and our Plant-Based Cooking Made Easy cookbook series, are all made possible in part by the generous patronage of our supporting membership community. So if you love our recipes, I invite you to join us on our mission to make plant-based cooking easy, and follow the link in the description to become a supporting member today. There's no denying the plant-based diet is a nutrient powerhouse, but did you know there are a handful of hard-to-get nutrients even well-crafted diets are often lacking? The latest research suggests that complementing your diet with a few specific vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s will help boost your energy and keep you thriving for the long term. That's why my daily health routine includes Complement Essential. Complement Essential contains the 8 critical nutrients lacking from most plant-based diets in dosages optimized specifically for us. As a special discount for our viewers, just use code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout to save 15% off of your order. All right, now onto the cheese. So you're going to need a blender, preferably a small blender because it's not a very large quantity. So we've got 1/2 cup of cashews, 1 tablespoon of tapioca starch, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon of low sodium tamari, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1/3 cup of water. And then we're just going to blend this up until it's really smooth and creamy, just like all of my sauces. Okay, there we go. So our cheese is done. Now all that's left is for you to choose your toppings, which I'll show you mine, and then we're going to assemble the crust and everything together, but I'll show you that in just a sec. All right, now for the assembly. So I've got half of my dough here, and I kind of just smashed it down into kind of a block, you know, a rectangular shape, because we're gonna roll this out between two pieces of parchment, just a little bit smaller than this paper, but you'll see as I go along. I'm gonna put our paper on the top, press it down a little bit, and then start with our rolling pin here. And we're trying to roll it out pretty thin. You don't want a huge amount of the dough, because then you're going to be getting more dough in a bite than the fillings. So you want it to be pretty thin. Okay, so there we go. Now, oops, you just need to kind of shape this into a rectangle, because we're going to be using it all the way to the edge. So you can either just cut or kind of smush the edge into itself, just to make kind of a straight edge along each edge. And if you have a corner like this that's kind of rounded still, you know, you can cut off some of this side and use that. It really does well to just press into itself, kind of glue itself back together. Or if you have any parts that are a little too thin, just press it right into there, or that are broke, like this little piece right here. There's just a little crack. Okay, so you see that, you know, it's about 1 foot wide by maybe 8 inches deep. And what we're gonna do here, we're gonna cut this into 3 pieces, and then one, you know, in half lengthways, like this, lengthwise, and then in 3. So you can just eyeball this, or you can, you know, you can use a ruler if you want to be super precise, but I don't think it's really that necessary. So each of these, so there's a bottom and a top, and you want to do this part together. So this is the part that we're going to fill closest to me, and then these we're going to flip over the top. And it's best to do this way because you're getting a little bit more accurate matching of the size, and you'll see when I put that top piece on how important the size is that they match up. If you did the other half separate as tops, it's just harder to get that size to work out right. All right, so now I'm just gonna gently lift them off just a little bit, unstick them from the paper, because once you get that filling on there, it's a little harder to get it off the paper. So just get them unstuck. And I would separate the bottom pieces out just a little bit. Oops. Press that one back together. Because we're going to end up crimping around the sides, and you need a little bit of space to work with. So just like that. Okay. So now I talked about our fillings, and I've got my fillings here. So I chose, this is my homemade pepperoni, and we'll give you a link in the details below to that show. It's a great recipe. It's so delicious. And you can use this for sandwiches or pizza or whatever. It keeps really well in the fridge, and you can just, you know, slice it off as you go. Then I cut some mushrooms, and these, you want to cut them pretty thin because these are kind of a flatter pocket. If they get too fat, then it, you know, it just, you struggle to get the top sealed to the bottom. Then I have Kalamata olives that I sliced really thin, and sun-dried tomatoes. Yum. Okay, but first, we're going to put a dollop of sauce on each one of these guys, spread it around a little bit. So you want to make sure you kind of eyeball, it's going to make 6 hot pockets. So you need to make, you know, use just enough to do 6. And you might have a little left over. It's always nice to have a little bit of dipping sauce. Okay, spread that sauce around a little bit. And you want to not go out to the edge, probably leave at least 1/4 inch, because that's where those 2 pieces of dough are going to stick together, and we're going to crimp it. If there's sauce on it, then it won't stick together very well. Okay, there we go. Now your toppings. These are just so fun and delicious. This would be fun, you know, if you've got little kids to be, you know, to kind of do this part together. They can decide what they want inside of their Hot Pocket, or, you know, those of us that grew up in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s. This is just a memory from childhood. I didn't really eat a whole lot of these Hot Pockets. We didn't get that kind of thing, but I saw commercials for them all the time, and there's all kinds of jokes about them, and I just think they're just the neatest thing. And I'm a huge pizza lover, so I just love it. Anything that can be made into a pizza, I'm for it. Now you do your cheese. Oops. Same with the cheese. Try not to get it out toward the edges. And you can use there's a little bit more cheese than the sauce, so you can go a little bit thicker with the sauce or with the cheese. But you know, you just don't want to go too much so that it oozes over and it oozes out the sides. And then we'll put our mushrooms on top here. Okay, so this is the part that you got to be a little bit more careful. And of course I did it wrong. I was supposed to fill this one, but that's okay. We're still good to go. I'll take that bottom, place it gently over the top, and then you just use a fork. Or if you have, you know, a fancy little, I think they're just little pastry crimpers, you just press down a little bit with your fork. Not super hard, just enough so it kind of glues the two dough surfaces together. All right, look at that. How adorable. All right, I'm gonna finish making these up and then I'll show you when I'm done. All right, now they're done. Look at those beauties. Now all that's left is to get them into the oven. So we're gonna put them on at 350 for 30 minutes. And then at the end, we're gonna turn the broiler on, but you gotta watch it really carefully just to kind of brown the tops of them just a bit. All right, guys, they're out of the oven. Come on in for a closer look. Ah, they smell amazing. I'm gonna let them cool for just a bit and then I'll meet you at the table for a taste. Okay, here we go. Whoa, look at that. Yum. Okay, here we go. Man, I love pizza. You are just gonna love this. Come on back next week for another great recipe.